Hey guys, today I'm going to do another one of my little devil's advocate episodes, which is basically me taking a random topic that is created by a random generator online, and then me picking the answer that I think is less popular or not the public opinion. Um, and in this case, the question, I don't know if it has an average answer, but I'm going with what I think is probably going against what I think is probably the average answer, and it also happens to be the one I prefer, which is I would you rather fly 10 miles per hour everywhere or run 50 miles per hour everywhere? Or better phrasing, would you rather be able to fly 10 miles per hour anywhere or fly or run 50 miles per hour anywhere? In my opinion, I believe that most people would choose to run 50 miles per hour anywhere without really, if they don't think about it too much. So in that case, I'm going to pick that I would rather fly up to 10 miles per hour anywhere. Um, Basically, my logic for this is I believe most people will pick to run because it's faster. 50 miles per hour is bigger than 10 miles per hour, very clearly. But I think I can make a pretty solid argument for why flying is a much better option. So let's just start by, in general, comparing what the speeds are, just the speeds not counting for running versus flying, really. So assuming that these are top speeds rather than the average speed. So, for example, flying wise, you could reach up to 10 miles per hour, which is still a pretty fast speed. That's probably around the average of the average person doing a pretty intense jog. The average running for like a long distance runner is 6 miles per hour to 7 miles per hour, which is around that 7 minute 48 second mile. So if you're talking about long distances, 10 miles per hour would be a very fast pace. Assuming that this is a top speed, like we were saying, I'm going to assume that this 10 miles per hour is meant to translate to an average distance running of 6 miles to 7 miles per hour, like a normal human would do. So with all that being said, I'm going to assume that the 10 mile per hour pace is pretty much your average speed as a person. So if you're a slow person, that 10 mile per hour top speed would be like you running pretty much full speed. The average person can run usually a bit faster than 10 miles per hour, at least probably 15 miles per hour if that's full on sprinting, even up to 20 miles per hour. If you look at Usain Bolt, he's the poster child for going fast. In his 100-meter run, his top speed was around 27 miles per hour. But with that being said, he is the fastest man alive, and that was a short distance run, which is a lot different than if you were trying to run to, let's say, the nearest grocery store or whatever. Also, just so we have a concept of how fast 50 miles per hour truly is, that's a mile of 1 minute and 12 seconds, which is faster than your brown hare or wildebeest, something like that. It's also the average speed for a freight train, which is limited by regulations to be no more than like 49 miles per hour. So yes, 50 miles per hour is extremely, extremely fast. If you could run a top speed of 50 miles per hour with your average speed, I would assume that if that's your top speed, your average speed would probably be somewhere around 30 miles per hour. Even if you're kind of going long distance, 20 miles per hour, that's still ridiculously fast for a human. So yes, the running is much, much faster than the flying. However, there's a lot of issues. There's a couple benefits, but there's mostly issues, in my opinion, with running. The primary one being obstacles. And that coincides with the fact that you also would need to go a further distance if you're running than flying. So what I'm picturing is if you're running from point A to point B, your only option is to really follow roads and paths and things like that, primarily roads, because you can't really sprint 50 miles per hour down a sidewalk or down like through a trail in the woods kind of thing without really having to dodge obstacles very quickly. And at 50 miles per hour, that would seem like a stretch. I don't think even wild animals don't run through the woods at 50 miles per hour. Even if they're capable of running 50 miles per hour, they go slower to avoid obstacles. So yes, even if you were running through the woods, let's say you're going 20 miles per hour because you're dodging obstacles and stuff, that is fast, but a lot of energy is being exerted dodging obstacles and things like that. So my guess is if I had the ability to run 50 miles per hour wherever I wanted, I would probably still choose to follow like the side of a road and even though that's a longer distance, that would be an easier run overall without dodging obstacles and stuff. Also, probably safer for those around me. I don't have to worry about someone or something kind of jumping out in front of me. It would just be me avoiding like getting into traffic and stuff. I also briefly mentioned that energy, I believe, is a big thing that you have to think about here. I would assume that the question isn't meant to really think about things that deeply, but if you were to have the capability to run 50 miles per hour, the energy that you would be exerting to do that would be absolutely astronomical. It would, but based on the very little knowledge I have of biology, if you right now with your physical body were running 50 miles per hour, you probably wouldn't be able to last more than a couple minutes maybe. Think about if you're running full speed with your current speed right now, how fast can you really keep that up? Maybe 4 or 5 minutes. Now, if you were exerting the kind of speed to go 50 miles per hour, me personally, I don't think I would last a minute. So I think that's something that definitely needs to be accounted for. If you're running 50 miles per hour, the chances of you being able to sustain that speed running 50 miles an hour from like New Jersey to Florida is not likely at all. Even if we don't account for that energy, I still think that the distance and obstacles are definitely enough of a reason. Let's assume that your energy is even better than it is normally. Let's say that if you usually exert yourself in 5 minutes running at full speed, that still isn't an issue. You could scale that up proportionally. Let's say it takes 25 minutes because you're 5 times faster than you normally would be or whatever. Just a lot of ballparking numbers here. But in any case, it's not like running wise you'd be able to go for a very long time. The only real benefit I could think of basically is that it would definitely be faster. There's no doubting that, which could correlate to it being a better option for short distances. Let's say you're trying to run across college campus to make it to a class, or you're kind of just running to the store real quick from your house or whatever, which is still a decent distance, but not really super far. Those short distances, it might be more practical to run faster depending on how you phrase flying and just out of convenience. But let me get into flying a little bit before I go too far into that. So when I talk about flying, I'm going to assume that this is like a Superman style flying, which is more of a levitating than like flapping your wings and flying. Since humans don't have wings, I'm going to assume this doesn't suddenly make it so you have wings. I'm going to assume that's the way Superman flies is I don't read enough comics to know for sure. He basically levitates. He can use his mind or whatever the heck to fly. He just flies. It's not like there's any physical action causing him to fly, which means that the whole energy thing I was just talking about is pretty much a non-factor. And even if we do assume you're exerting equivalent energy to what you would be if you were moving as a normal person, you're not going as fast, so I don't think that extreme energy exertion is something you have to worry about. Obviously, for flying, your distances are much shorter. You don't have to worry about all that stuff I was saying with the obstacles getting in your way and having to cut through woods and things like that. You can just fly right over everything. So in that respect, you still travel very fast in those distances where, like I was saying, the 10 miles per hour is still a very solid speed. That's, if you were walking from one point to another, you're barely going 2 miles an hour probably. So you flying, barely exerting energy without having to go down a directed path just straight as the bird flies from point A to point B, that's going to take significantly less time, and it's going to be a much easier trip for you. One of the things I mentioned is that running might be a more convenient option than flying if you're talking about short distances, but even then, based on the very little I've seen of like Superman comics and TV shows and movies or whatever, is he can kind of levitate like a foot off the ground or whatever and do that wherever. So that's how I would assume you would travel if you were doing short distances, like let's say in a grocery store or whatever. You could kind of zip around half a foot off the ground through a grocery store. And then, of course, the biggest benefit of flying, it's just cool in general. To be able to go up, I didn't really think too much about the max height. Let's say it's around the height of a bird kind of thing, your average bird, not like some falcon or whatever. Average bird could easily get over buildings at least, talking 8 to 10 stories. So solid flight, being able to get over just about anything, or if you're at that height, if you're going like past a skyscraper, you can just go around it. But yeah, flying in general is very cool. The biggest negative I could think of, and this is something that I didn't think of until like as I was talking about all this, is if you were actually to have the ability to fly, the chances are public reaction would be a big deal. Like if you just walked out your door and flew to the grocery store or whatever and landed at the grocery store, unless this became a normalized thing, people would be really freaking out. Like they would be calling the police and there would be newspaper reporters at your house, that kind of stuff. So assuming that you're the only person that flies, it's impossible to not be noticed if you're flying around doing your thing. Whereas running, even if you're running super fast, like 50 miles per hour fast, chances are it would take a while for people to catch on that you're doing that. And I feel like that's easier to hide. Like you could run 30 miles per hour and someone will just kind of go, whoa, that guy is really fast. It's not like, whoa, he's going superhuman fast. And even running 50 miles per hour, I don't know how well I could gauge someone running that fast. I would recognize they're going fast, but I don't know what my reaction would be. Whereas flying, I feel like would definitely be something more noticed. Eventually, you'd probably be captured or whatever, be experimented on, all those kind of things. And your best case scenario, even if none of that experimentation, you locked in a lab as a guinea pig stuff happens so that scientists could figure out why you're able to fly, you're probably forced to be a superhero. And for some people, that might be a benefit. In my opinion, being forced to be a superhero is rough. Like a lot of times, I could imagine, kind of walking through New York City, someone's getting mugged, and since everyone knows you could fly, you're expected to do something about it, even without any other powers other than, oh, cool, he could fly. That seems like a very big negative, and that might be enough to change my mind about the flying thing, but realistically, I'm thinking it through. I would still probably pick flying, just such a better, more convenient option for everything. I think with like the area I live in a very rural area. If I were to start flying in my hometown kind of thing, people would notice, people would call cops and react and stuff. I think I could hide it enough or convince my small town enough to keep it hush-hush that I can make it work. So yeah, I think that pretty much wraps up everything I had planned out to talk about this topic. Again, I'm trying to do one of these little devil's advocate things about once a week. I feel like they're a good filler. It's better than me kind of going on these random rants about life hacks or whatever you would call them, my personal life, things like that. So I'll wrap it up here. I'll see you all tomorrow, and thank you for watching.